competitor and see how good they truly are.
How much was the state recommended? JoJo recommended them? Or who?
Everybody, yep.
Yeah.
They're still recommending cross. We will have a different assessor than the person that we currently have. They've already promised that even within the contract, but it doesn't make up for the 42,000 plus. Just trying to get rid of the 42,000 and use the abatements as our best reason why. Because that $100,000 overlay that I put in our MS4 is almost all eaten up. I'm just glad that 3 more weeks to go. The BTLA hasn't settled with Walmart in this fiscal year.
We're ready. Is Jamie ready?
Yep.
Call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. All right, this time. Pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Announcements. The Select Board will meet the following dates. Our regular meeting, 6 p.m. June 22nd and July 13th, 2009. Work review sessions prior to the regular meetings will start at 5 p.m. Work session meeting at will be held at 5 p.m. June 15, 2009. All of the above meetings will be held in Town Hall unless otherwise posted. Weather observations for the month of May are posted in the front lobby at the Town Hall. U.S. Census Bureau employees continue to visit every housing unit in every neighborhood through July of this year. They will wear official ID badges. Okay, now we want the work session minutes. May 26th. Anyone have anything to input on the minutes of the work session for the 26th? There being none, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the work session minutes of May 26th, 09.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of May 26th. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of the work session are approved. Agenda review. Where's the, the minutes of the 26th, the meeting on the 26th. Find them first, because I had a comment on them. And I just had one, I made a note on mine, and I put it underneath here. Let me see. I have one comment on the water department. Under the Water and Sewer Committee, under the committee reports, Chairman Berman reported the Water and Sewer District met and was held, and a meeting was held in which, oh, that's not where I'm looking. Where is it? There's something else in the water.
Page 4 at the top. All the way at the top.
Yeah, the word repair. Berman also reported that a repair project, it's actually a refurbishing project for the water and sewer. Far from repair for
Page
$6
4.
million. Yeah, page 4 at the top. Change from that.
Change repair to refurbish?
Yeah, a refurbishing project. for $6 million, you're going to do a lot more than repair it. Anyone else have any comments on the minutes? Can I make a motion? Motion to...
Move that we approve the amended minutes from May 26th.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the amended minutes from May 26th. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. All right. We want to move to the appointment agenda review. What else have we got on the agenda?
I don't have any changes.
Okay. So we have the appointment of Justin Gray as a year-round part-time position at the Recycle Center. Mr. Gray is currently, a part-time employee for at the cemetery?
Yep.
And he'll be moved to the Recycle Center. His pay rate will not change, and pay rate and benefits will stay the same. He's just moved from the cemetery to the Recycle Center. Do we have a vote to approve that? A motion?
Go ahead. I move we approve the appointment of Justin Gray.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the appointment of Justin Gray. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Justin Gray is a year-round part-time position at the recycling center. Updates? None. Correspondence? None. Visitors? Deb Reynolds is not here.
Well, I think she's going to be here around 6:15.
Okay. So why don't we recognize Tom Salmon from Main Street, Plymouth, Inc. Thomas, you want to come up?
Good evening.
How are you?
I asked Charlie if I could maybe come and visit you folks this evening to talk about our current status of Main Street Plymouth, Inc. As you know, we have, well, you may not know, but we have had a difficult time maintaining our immediate goals in terms of fundraising. And as you know, we have had, we started a sort of a goal and a pledge that began with to start a dream and make the dream come true, sort of a fundraising campaign earlier this March. And what that encumbered was board recruiting and more members, community engagement with the downtown folk, some capital initiatives which were specific that we arrived at through a mapping session, and overall fundraising. The board recruitment was successful. We got new people on the board, and we started to re-engage with the merchants on Plymouth, getting involved with their shop local program, which has been very effective and very encouraging, frankly, and very well run. We've attended some of the merchants meetings and we're able to sort of witness firsthand what's been going on with those guys, and they're doing a great job. But when it came to actually fundraising, we sort of had we arrived at a crossroads. Our organizational challenges this year have been tough when it's come to capital projects, basically. And fundraising has been one of the issues we've had. It's been funny, as you know, we've had many projects that we've been involved with over the years for the last 10 years, starting with the roundabout and, doing things like having the canopy built over the stairs and doing the gazebo and the common and various sort of capital projects, Plymouth Youth Center. And we do have other projects slated, but what we've run into is that from a cash flow standpoint, we had to make some decisions just because we weren't able to raise the funds we really needed. And a lot of the money that we can generate come from those capital projects. But at the moment, we have to take action to make some changes. And I just wanted to let you know, because the Select Board is one of our main contributors, and we do appreciate and thank you for the monies that you've given us over the years. What we're about is to do a sort of a reorganization, because we aren't going to be able to fund the services of our executive director, nor the office, the rent for the office. What that means is that the remaining people on the board are going to handle the activities going forward, which are going to continue to include relating to the downtown merchants, supporting the annual Flower Bell program, supporting the second Community Awareness Day, and supporting the annual lunch concert series throughout the summer. We'll still be doing all those things. We'll also still be having the Main Street page in the newspaper. So we're going to continue to find ways to fundraise. We're going to develop some more programs. We're not going to stop doing what we do. We just aren't going to have an executive director for the time being, and it isn't clear how far that's going to go. So we're just going to make the best of it, and just continue to try to work as hard as we can for the people that live and work in downtown Plymouth. And we aren't sure what that's going to mean for the official organization of Main Street. We have to look into that. But I wanted to let you folks know immediately, as well as all the other supporters we have, the various corporations and donors that have given us support over the years. So we don't see it as an end, we just see it as a change. But we do feel obligated to let you know.
I think in technology terms, you've virtualized your location.
Virtualized, I like that word. Yep.
So the executive director has been no longer with the board?
The executive director is wrapping up various things this week and will possibly continue on a volunteer basis on specific items if she so chooses. We welcome that. She's done a great job for us. It's just all about the cash flow. We just aren't going to be able to keep up with it until something changes. And we're going to continue to try to make that change happen, but it isn't fair to her or anyone in that position. So,
do you think your cash flow, well, not so much cash flow, but let's just talk about the current debt level is going to be cleared up with your
yes.
the donations?
Yes, that's another thing we have to deal with. We are going to take care of the debt load. And we're counting on the monies that have been promised to us. We hope that everyone comes through with that. We hope you come through with that. But that's part of the picture, and we do have to take care of it. And we plan to do it.
Do you have any questions? Carol? Well, we wish you a lot of luck.
Okay. Thank you.
Hope to see it. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do you have any land use permits?
No.
No land use, okay. Deb's not here.
Committee reports.
Did you have anything on committees? Was there anything on committees or anything?
Why don't you bring, the chief can come up and go over your bid and your, taking it in order, your bid and your purchase order.
On the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us a re-rundown, so to speak.
There's Deb right there.
Mrs. Reynolds is here.
Want to go through?
Yeah, well, finish it.
As we all know, re-rundown was, the condition of the current station is in a real poor shape, so we had no alternative but to repair the roof and repair some of the sidewalls so that we could keep the rain out and the animals out of the building. We sent out bid proposals throughout the paper, and we received 3 bids from 3 local contractors. Long story short, I weighed them all up, and we're going to get a lot more done for less money going through Constructs. It is just a repair job that we're doing. The roof is going to be new. It's new insulation. There was some hanging chicken wire with insulation that the workers at the fire department members took down themselves to try to save some money. We got that done today. And Constructs came in at $39.9, replaced the roof insulation and come up 5 feet on the side panels and repair the sills that are rotted out, so that we no longer will have some walls that you can pull in and out. Along with that, we're going to have enough money left over to replace the 4 bay doors that are in dire need this past weekend. Like I indicated, I was called down because we had one door that was inoperable, and our ladder truck would not be able to get out unless we drove through the door. Myself and the duty crew spent a couple hours and got that patched back up. So that is the next major thing, is to get them doors replaced so they don't come crashing down and they do operate. So at this time, I have a purchase order, unless you're going to make a motion to accept Construct's bid, and I'll pass the bid that they gave.
So they're going to, what's this whole thing coming to about?
What?
Be a little over 40,000, 41, 42.
The work that Constructs is going to do, their bid was $39.9.
And we have
Maybe
enough
some
to do.
unforeseen things, not that much, to the tune of, they indicated potentially $325 for some unforeseen insulation that may have been damaged by the rain that comes in constantly. There's windows and doors. I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to reuse the windows and doors that are there to keep the cost down. This is the repair job. This building is 40 years old, and it was a temporary building when it was put in. It's really outlasted its life expectancy. This is just to get us through the next few years.
Yeah.
What's safe for the firefighters and decent working environment.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the $39,900 for Constructs to handle the fire station roof and building repairs.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the $39,900 Construct proposal. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved. Do I sign this, Paul, or is it?
You sign a contract.
Yeah, that's the contract with
Now, on the doors, do we have to do anything on that, or do you just purchase
the
it?
doors are another.
That's another quote, John. We have to
And
get
they're
a quote.
salvageable if we end up...
Those doors are going to go, once I believe what you're going to find is that the current facility we're in is to the point where if we do anything, it's going to come down.
Yeah.
And the doors are going to be able to go along with it. Everything with the exception of the roof. We're going to take all the screws out, bring the roof metal, but anything we put in there, we're making provisions to spend good money.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Yep.
Committee reports. I would like to...
We'll go back and have
Oh,
Senator
all right, yeah, we'll go back to
Reynolds.
Senator Reynolds. Greetings.
Thank you. Thank you
Good
very
day.
much. Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Good evening.
Paul?
How you doing?
I think that the purpose of meeting with the board was, I had a conversation with Paul last week about where we're at in the state budget process, and I think he wanted me to take this opportunity to give you sort of a briefing, an update on where we're standing. So here I am. Last Wednesday evening, the New Hampshire State Senate passed the Senate's version of the budget. And that included revenue sources that were controversial and to some extent contained some sources that I wasn't completely in support of, but nonetheless felt a need to move the process forward and voted for some of those revenue sources. And part of the purpose of the Senate version differing from the House version is to allow for negotiation with the House in the Committee of Conference, which has started its work. Senate President Larson asked me to serve as an alternate on the Committee of Conference, so I'm going down in the morning and we'll be sitting through most of the negotiations that are going on, and if there's a need to pull one Senate member off and replace that senator with one or two alternates, I will be there at the table. So I wanted to kind of give you an update on some of the changes that the Senate made. When the House budget came over, the House budget did not contain about $87 million in school building aid. It was just not addressed at all. It wasn't in the governor's budget, it wasn't in the House budget. In addition, because of the stimulus money that affects Medicaid eligibility and the caseload numbers that we have, there was about $126 million that was an additional hole in the DHHS budget, which of course is about 50% of the state budget, is the Department of Health and Human Services. In addition to that, the revenue picture in the state over the past 8 months, not surprisingly, has been very bleak. In the month of May, the revenue was down about $25 million. In April, it was down about $50 million, and it has been down for the past 8 months because of what's happening on the national level, because of what's happening with the economy. New Hampshire is not immune from that, and we are certainly seeing it in unemployment and lack of revenue. The real estate transfer tax, which we all know, because when we're buying and selling real estate, we pay it. Those estimates are way down because the real estate market is doing so poorly. So you're seeing in almost every revenue-generating tax that we currently have, whether it's room meals, the business profits tax, the business enterprise tax, just a real decline in revenue. So faced with that, the Senate Finance Committee did some really, really challenging work, and were able to put, some items back into the budget, but also had to do some sharp, cuts. And I think you've read about some of those: the closure of the Laconia prison, the closure of the Toby School. 5 district courts will, at least in the Senate version, will no longer exist, including the one in Colebrook, which I feel very strongly about trying to see if we can get money back in the budget because it's such an isolated part of the state. So very major cuts have been made, and some funding has been restored. And I think what you may have been hearing from the New Hampshire Municipal Association is the whole revenue sharing piece. And just to bring you up to date with that, the governor's budget, when it was originally proposed, was talking about doing away with about $54 million in the room and meals revenue sharing. That has been restored. That has been restored in all versions of the budget, okay? In addition to that, as I said, in the Senate version of the budget, $87 million in school building aid is included in that. And I think what happens in our municipalities is that because we have a separate SAU and a separate school budget, the school budget is actually doing very well between what has come in for stimulus funds, Title I money, IDA money, and now the school building aid, $87 million restoration. It filters down to us in town, but it's not on the municipal side, if you understand what I'm saying. If if the budget had gone forward with keeping the $54 million out of the budget, that would have meant a loss to the town of Plymouth of $250,000 in the first year and $260,000 in the next year. So that money has been restored. What is still not restored is about $25 million on the state level for revenue sharing, okay? And as I said, I read what the municipal association sends out, and I read that because I want to know what they're telling my towns and what they're telling my constituents about what's going on. And in the Senate, we did put a line item $1 amount for revenue sharing, so at least we can have a discussion with the House members. I'm not really optimistic that 25, this is on the state level, not the town of Plymouth, that money is going to get restored. It just, it's a very, very, very tight budget. Just as we're having on the town level, the state is having some very difficult times. In terms of the budget itself, it's about a 0.65% increase over last year. You're going to hear a lot of different numbers thrown out there, but it's a very, very small incremental increase. I do think the positive development that's happening in the town of Plymouth, and I know we have Tim Taylor from the town of Thornton here too, is that I believe due to the fact that the town manager has been so on top of things, that we've been able to leverage some stimulus funds that some of the other towns have not. And we're still working on that. We're working on getting all the towns in this district to get some fair share of the stimulus funds. And that's going to offset, at least in the short term, some of the hurt that we may feel on the local level. I was listening to MBR, as I know all of you do, this morning, and they had Mr. Zimmerman on from Pike Industries. I just went up to Haverhill and saw, a bunch of Pike trucks on Route 25 doing work, which, of course, I'm thrilled about because it means some of our roads are state highways that are off the beaten track are getting some attention, but others aren't. So I just wanted to give you a summary of what's going on. Tomorrow I'll be going down at 9 o'clock. The Committee of Conference will be convened. We are going to be working round the clock to see if we can get a balanced budget agreed upon by July 1st. The worst thing that could happen to the state would be to not have a budget by July 1st, because at that point you're operating on a continuing resolution and you're operating on a budget that we don't have the revenues for. So we're all working very, very hard. I was down at the State House about 2 weeks ago when the Senate Finance Committee was concluding its work. They went until 2 o'clock in the morning. And, there are elements of the Senate passed version that I'm not thrilled about. And I think that there's going to be some hard negotiating in the Committee of Conference. But I think we all recognize that we are in just very unique, challenging economic times, not only in our town, but in the country, and it's a tough time. The good news, if there is good news in Grafton County, is that our unemployment rate is about the lowest of all 10 counties. And I think that has to do with the fact that we have some stable employers in Grafton County. We have Plymouth State University, Dartmouth College, Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, some hospitals. That's helped us, through a rough time. But if you look at the other New England states, Rhode Island is in terrible shape. Rocket high unemployment. Massachusetts is not in good shape. And we all know what's going on in California. So I kind of look at it regionally. New Hampshire really isn't doing as badly as the other New England states. So I'm here to answer any questions that that you have, and to see if I can fill you in on any. I think the good news from the town of Plymouth's perspective is you have your state senator, who's not only your state senator, but a resident of the town at the negotiating table. And I'm going to do everything I can to protect our part of the state.
What's your role as an alternate? Will you get a vote?
If the conferees don't come to an agreement, Daryl, and I'll give you an example. The Senate version included gaming licensing, which is, $50 million in the first year and $50 in the second year, depending on which venues were to get the licenses right now. Senator D'Alessandro's proposing Rockingham and Seabrook, but, you know, there's also one for Belmont. Traditionally, the House of Representatives is very opposed to expanded gambling. I personally am very opposed to expanded gambling. I don't want to see gaming as part of the mix going forward. So let's suppose the conferees can't agree, and it may be that, and I'm just giving you a hypothetical, that if somebody was really adamant on the Senate side about having gaming as part of the mix, but it was clear that the House members would not agree, the Senate President then has the option of taking that Senate committee member off and appointing one of the alternates, and I'm one of the alternates. So the hard work is ahead of us. We have a lot of hard negotiating to do, and because we are in very difficult economic times, you know, we don't have a lot of great choices here. We don't have a broad-based tax. We don't have the kind of robust economic climate that I think we're all been so used to for many, many years in the state. I mean, this is a very, very challenging time in the state finance.
How's this hitting how's this going to hit the county level government?
The county's actually doing very well. The county has gotten a bunch of money from the stimulus package. So it's not necessarily going to, I think statewide, the counties have gotten something like $33 million. So the counties are actually doing well. And some of that's going to help shore up the nursing home costs. I mean, one thing I would throw out to you is that, and I know Paul has been very proactive about looking at what stimulus grants are out there, and I know that the town has, I guess, qualified for some. No, not yet. Okay.
We keep being told that our budget is too healthy,
Okay.
our reserve budget.
Okay, so one thing that we could try to do is troll through some of the, there's something like $20 million in sort of optional grants out there that are competitive, and take a look at those and see if there's something that we could fit into. The other possibility is, I know Tim Taylor from Thornton has been in touch with Bud Fitch. Bud Fitch has been appointed by Governor Lynch to head the Governor's Office of Economic Recovery. Bud, you know, carries around with him the regulations from the stimulus funding, and it may be that we could possibly ask him to come up and meet with us and see if there's some.
Well, the reason why I asked you that, Deb, is
Yeah.
because, and I've just talked to Tim,
Yeah.
we don't know of any managers in our area that have been able to secure any stimulus money for the same reasons that I mentioned.
Well, I think Paul Weston in Bristol has.
Right.
We have two.
Right. And,
But they fell underneath complete different conditions that
right.
Plymouth and Thornton and the other towns around here don't even qualify for.
Right, they were able to get, I think, the DES grant on the water
Right.
quality, yeah.
Right.
And,
Which would be similar to our water department
Right.
being able to get a grant.
right, but I think that if in fact, you know, early on, I think we had sort of talked about the conundrum that Plymouth had of being so healthy that.
Too healthy.
Too healthy, that we're not qualifying right off the top. I have met with the Plymouth Selectboard, and we're talking about possibly putting a group of our smaller Grafton County towns together to do a broadband grant. That's another method. I know I saw something about Time Warner in the minutes, and I would certainly be glad to talk about Time Warner, but I would be more than happy to see if there's some way we can perhaps get Bud up here and meet with us and see if he can give some guidance. Some of the stimulus money and some of the grants are still unfolding and still rolling out. I don't think that President Obama is done, or the administration is done with some of these applications. I know there is some available funding for rural fire departments. I'm not sure if we would fit in that mix at all.
The fire chief is here tonight. We just formed the committee last week when this started coming out, and we meet all the criteria except for one, being too healthy.
Okay.
But we do meet all of the rest of the criteria. We're going full bore after that grant.
Okay.
And we're hoping that we're not going to be held back just because we're being frugal.
Right, right. And I do think that, I mean, as I said, we know that Pike Industries has got a ton of, projects going on around us. I think I had heard anecdotally about our streets in town getting done.
Oh, Main
summer.
Street.
Main
Main
Street.
Main Street, yeah.
And that is certainly stimulus, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's coming
Not
in
for the
mid-July.
town. That's actually going to cost the town money,
Is that going
$26,000.
to DOT? Is that a DOT?
Yeah.
That's a DOT project. That's going to cost us $26,000 that we hadn't saved for.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? What is
Sure.
the House budget that you're going into conference?
Right.
What is their budget? We're between $1 and what number?
The House budget, I guess, I'm not sure if I understand the question, Charlie, I'm sorry. What's your question?
Well, you're going into a conference
Right.
committee to decide how much, now the House has evidently come up with,
Okay. The House budget contained some revenue sources that we respectfully do not think are sustainable. For example, they included a $16 million charitable gaming tax. So if Deb Reynolds were to go to Las Vegas, win money, that would be taxed somehow. I don't think it's a realistic number. That's one example. I think that the revenue sources they include such things as a capital gains tax and the state tax. There is another fairly controversial piece that is being bandied about, although I don't think it's going to survive, which is to do a suspension of the BET credit against the business profits tax. That has gotten a lot of, raised a lot of concerns. During the negotiations on the Senate side, we were able to eliminate it for the first year. We still have it in the second year. It's basically a carryover process where you can carry over the credit into a future year, up to 10 years. But it's still very problematic, and the state chartered banks don't like it at all. So, as I said, without expanded gaming, the House arrived at a certain formulas for where they were getting their revenue sources.
which
And as
did
I
not
said-
include the gaming.
That's right. And for example, the Senate budget did not include capital gains, did not include the estate tax. And speaking with Governor Lynch about the estate tax in particular, he's opposed to it. And one of the things that's happening right now is the governor's office is looking at other potential revenue sources, basically trying to close tax loopholes. There's a discussion, and I'm not saying that it's going to be in the final budget because I think it's pretty controversial, of actually doing a transfer tax type of tax on refinancing, which in my humble opinion is not really going to be very helpful because we need people to refinance and to be able to afford to do that. If you put a tax on that, I think that's going to have a counterproductive impact. So the negotiating plan is you have opposing revenue sources, opposing taxes, that through this process, some of it's going to survive, some of it's not going to survive. There are certainly increases in fees. There's certainly, as I said, the unfortunate reality is a lot of really important, wonderful programs are going to be cut. The version of the House budget and the governor's proposal was to lay off 200 state employees. Nobody wants to do that. But the other side of that is when you hear about arguments about, well, why don't you just cut the budget 2.5%? You can't do that. You can't do that without reducing legal responsibilities that the state has to its state employees. Healthcare costs, do you fund, 2.5% less of somebody's health insurance premium? I mean, it sounds good. It sounds, superficially appealing, but it's really up to us to direct how those cuts are going to occur, and that's the hard part. So as I said, Charlie, I think it's going to be a very, intense and challenging negotiating process the next couple weeks.
Senator, I think one of the big questions at this level is on the revenue sharing with the towns, the difference between the House budget and the $1 that the Senate, what's the gap?
Because the House did nothing about that, and neither did the Senate, the dollar inclusion allows us to have a conversation about it, because it gets you into a situation where you have at least the House and Senate rules allow for negotiating about that. I don't want to mislead you, though, because I'm not sure that's going to get restored. I'm not seeing that. I mean, if you have some specific, comments or observations about types of revenue sources, I'd be glad to hear them. I mean, there's a lot to hate in this budget is what I'm saying. There's something for everyone to hate. But the reality is, on the other side, I'm very proud of the work that's being done in very difficult, challenging times. And people talk about, cut spending, we are cutting. We're cutting millions and millions of dollars from the state budget. And it gets to the point where, what do we do? Do you close down the New Hampshire State Prison? Do you close down the New Hampshire Hospital? We're cutting, we're closing courts. 5 district courts under this scenario are going to close. So we're looking at some pretty tough times, but I think on the upside is if we can get through this down, terrible economic recession we're in, hopefully things will pick up in a couple of years and we'll be back on track.
And Senator?
Yes.
Just for my own planning,
Yes.
we went into March with a budget.
Right?
We were given a figure for meals and room tax.
Yeah.
Will we be getting that money that we were told last fall that we'd be getting?
Yes.
Will we be getting the money that we were told for the highway block grant?
I do not know the answer to that. I will find out for you, okay?
So we will get the meals and room
Yes.
tax?
So Deb, why do you feel it's going to be so hard to get the 50.4 million put back in?
Well, the 54 million is back in. It's
is
the
back in.
25, that's the room and meals revenue sharing that Paul was talking about. It's the other revenue sharing that's on a statewide level at 25 million that's probably not going to get restored. If you remember, when the governor announced his budget, and he talked about doing away with all of the revenue sharing, including room and meals, there was a huge outcry about that. And now the governor has leveraged some of the stimulus money, and the House and the Senate, I think, will concur on that. So the bigger piece has been restored and will be restored. But it's going to have some impact on the town. And, we're all sitting here as taxpayers. I mean, I pay my taxes every single year, and I'm one of the people that's probably going to, we're going to feel that pinch on the state level and on the municipal level, and I wish it weren't so. But, I don't want to sit here and tell you that things are going to dramatically change, because I'm not seeing that. That's really, really difficult. Yes?
Senator, when you alluded to I don't know how to say this, but the retirement of the teachers, the police, and the firemen will not be touched, right? In other words, that's a defined benefit plan, and they have to be paid that amount.
Correct.
Is there any possible way that that could be adjusted at all? Because
Well,
excuse me, but
Sure.
There's so many other companies, there's General Motors, there's all these other companies that seem to have busted that balloon that everybody had as far as municipal workers are concerned, and that is a big piece of change as far as that's concerned.
The House version of the budget developed an 11.5% health insurance premium that retired state workers were going to have to pay between ages 55 to 65. And I met with a group of the retired state employees in Warren on April, I think it was in April, And, you know, that caused a huge amount of angst and concern on their part. Some of these people are living on fixed incomes. They don't have an extra, you know, $100 a month to put towards health insurance. The Senate version changed that, and it reduced it to about $65, you know, for a single person and over about $100 for a couple. So we have done that. We are passing some of these costs through to our state employees. And keep in mind that under all of these scenarios, there's still, you know, about 200 state employees who will be losing their jobs. And that includes the people from Laconia, the Toby School, and, you know, it's tough. I think there'll be other discussions, hard discussions with the state employees as we go through the next couple of weeks, John. Absolutely.
Right. The other thing is that, and a lot of people were talking to me about this, about the towns having some of the best education in the nation, and they seem to have the problem of the equation of us having the best schools, some of the best schools in the nation, but we don't seem to keep the people here. They all go somewhere else, so we're paying for the education, and other parts of the country are getting the benefit of our education. And it seems to disturb a lot of people that are paying high property taxes.
Oh, that's a good point. You know, all the demographics are that, you know, New Hampshire is an aging population. We are losing our talented young people. And one of the reasons I've been driving the broadband initiative so hard is I think if we had the implementation of the broadband plan, that would help us in some of the parts of the state, quite frankly, that are very rural. The broadband bill that I sponsored has passed in the House and the Senate. We create a broadband position at the state level, funded not through the general fund, but through some of the stimulus broadband money. And I'm just waiting for the governor to sign it before I go really, really public with this whole thing. But I do think you're right, John, and you know, it doesn't matter what town I go to, it's a concern, because some of it has to do with workforce housing, some of it has to do with the fact that we don't have a robust telecommunications center in our part of the state. I'm hoping that will change. One of the things that is going on is that there are a lot of broadband applications being made throughout our part of the state. Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, a lot of the biotech firms are applying for stimulus money involving research and development grants. And I do think that's an opportunity for us, and I think we should be looking at that. You know, how can we in Plymouth triangulate a research and development grant, you know, among Dartmouth College, Plymouth State University, and the White Mountain Community College? I think we could do it, but we need to get ourselves out there and apply for those stimulus dollars. So, as I said, it's not. We are definitely going through very challenging times right now, but I think at the end of the day, if we can take advantage of some of these opportunities out there, we might be better off, you know, 10, 15 years from now.
One last statement,
Sure.
and that is, I was listening to public radio today, and they indicated that, there was a fellow questioning that because there were a lot of the stimulus money, and you alluded to it earlier, for Pike to put down 2 inches of pavement, which in 5 years' time is going to be right back to where it is right now, and they could not understand why more money wasn't going to bridges and stuff like that.
And I've heard other, you know, interest groups talk about the bridges in particular. I met with a group of loggers and people that, you know, are haulers in Wentworth about a month ago, and they were concerned about the gas tax, which of course is another big component of the House budget that is not in the Senate budget. The governor has made it clear that he's going to veto that, but to be honest with you, you know, it certainly would be nice if because that is shared with the towns, it's roughly $50 million a year total, if we could see our way, you know, to do that. Because in our part of the state, and I know you all experience it as well, You know, you can drive on Route 3 from Plymouth to Ashland and experience that ride, or you can go to Piermont or Haverhill or other parts of our state, our part of the state, where the roads are really deteriorating. And we've got to get that infrastructure paid for somehow. Got to. So anyway, I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight. As I said, feel free to call me as we, you know, go through the next couple of weeks. You know where I live. You have my phone number. Feel free to, you know, call me with any questions you might have. Yes, Charlie?
We have one individual who'd like to.
I just wanted to clarify something. You said the $87 million in school building aid is restored.
It is restored in the Senate version of the budget, yes.
Would that mean if a district is looking at a school building addition that they might get the 30% aid or whatever?
Yeah,
Or
I
are there
believe so,
limits to
Tim, but I think before I answer that categorically, let me check with the Department of Education, but I believe that's so. As I said, one of the differences between the House and the Senate version were that these funds, I believe, are already committed. In other words, I think the communities have already been relying on commitments for these funds.
So they've already had projects approved,
right,
voted through by their communities.
Right. But this is one of the, you know, this is one of the things that the Senate version did that was different than ours for me. But thank you very much. I'm glad to be here on
Well, I still have one more for you there.
Yes.
Actually, two concerns.
Okay.
When you go into conference,
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest concerns that probably every town administrator, manager, and mayor and board has is we put together our budgets in March.
Right.
We're told we're going to have X amount of monies given to us from the state. I think we could accept something that was a year down the road from now saying we're no longer going to get these monies, but to be directed by the Department of Revenue to take X amount of dollars promised by the state, build our budgets around those dollars, and put in an MS6 starting in January and February of this year, and then have to go before the Department of Revenue in September with an MS4, which has to be a lot more accurate, and subtract $400,000 that was promised to us. I can't see how towns can survive that. And it's almost like the state has forgotten how municipalities have been told and need to operate. We can't go in reverse. We can look into the future and no longer plan on having that money, but I can't see how we can have something taken away from us that we were mandated to use towards our budget as a foundation block. That's my first concern.
Okay.
My second concern is all the stimulus money that we're saying that we could have use for is always requiring a 50% match,
Right.
more money that towns have not put aside for and planned for. And unlike Plymouth, I think there's many towns out there that haven't prepared for this kind of money, and you're going to ask them to put themselves into bigger debt than what they were actually planning for. And they might unknowingly do that, and it sounds like a good idea on the table, but if you have 100% of nothing saved,
Right.
giving 50%, you're still back to having 50% of nothing that you saved for.
You're absolutely right, and you're points very well taken.
Thank you.
And as I said, I mean, if you think at a future meeting it would be helpful to have Bud Fitch come up and talk about some of the programs. I believe he's going to show up in Thornton on Wednesday night.
He's scheduled to be in Thornton Wednesday
Because Tim has been Tim Tyler, from one of our new selectmen from Thornton, has been proactive in reaching out to Bud. I mean, he may come up and say there isn't much he can do.
He's probably going to tell us that.
And he may come here and say that, but if it sounds like just have a conversation with him, I'm glad to have him up here. And that's
I've already
something
talked to him.
You have.
There's not very much that he can do.
But it'd be great to talk to him anyway.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I mean, I think we're in a pretty fluid situation with the budget. And if you have particular concerns and you've voiced them to me, and I appreciate that so much, I will certainly carry those down to Concord with me.
It's just an understanding to the taxpayers that we submitted a good budget in March, and it could take a hit this coming September.
I hear ya.
and have an impact on the tax rate. One that wasn't
A lot of other things,
anticipated by
too.
this board or any other board in the
Right.
state.
No,
Have an impact on a lot of things.
right.
The state's laying off, what, 250 people?
Roughly 200 people, and, all of the agencies have come in and, have been asked to continue to, look through their budgets and cut. I mean,
Is that just state? That's not the police and fire, they
No.
haven't gotten involved.
state-
Now, is that just early retirement, or are they going to
I'm
have,
not sure how the process is going to unfold. I mean, there's a bunch of people at the Laconia prison, for example. I believe about 12 of those people are going to be rehired and go to Berlin, the Toby School. And to some extent, one of the things that we've done in the Senate version of the budget was do away with this whole bumping rule, which basically gives the agency has a little bit more flexibility in deciding, who they're going to cut. So in the final analysis, I'm here to be your eyes and ears down there, and I will do everything I can to, address the concerns that Paul has raised and that we all share. And, as I said, I'm hoping that we'll get through this difficult economic time, and some of these budget cuts may not have to be forever. We just have to tighten our belts right now because the state just doesn't have the money. We don't have an alternative revenue source. We don't have a broad-based tax. We don't have, the types of revenue sources other states. I'm not saying I support it. I'm just saying we have a limitation on the types of revenue sources that we're looking at.
And I'm just saying, Senator, that I
Yeah.
felt if the governor could take the stimulus package money
Yeah.
and use it more as an aid package or a bailout package
Yeah.
towards the state's deficiencies, that I think all the towns would rather just see the promised revenues come in versus a $150,000 stimulus grant in one hand and $400,000 in revenue taken away in the other hand.
I hear you.
Call it an aid package, because I really believe it is only an aid package. We're calling it stimulus money. We're not stimulating anything. We're actually going backwards. And I think somebody has to step up to the plate and say it is what it is,
Yeah.
and let's just use it to balance the state's budget and not touch anything that was... All towns would be fine with that. If we just came out of this status quo,
Yeah.
I think we'd be more happy with that than hearing we might get a stimulus grant,
Right.
especially towns that aren't broke in.
Mr. Chair, could we ask the Thornton Selectmen for the location and time of Bud Fitch's appearance?
The meeting is this Wednesday night at 7 o'clock at the Thornton Town Hall. It's an open meeting, 7 o'clock.
What's the date? Wednesday,
This Wednesday, I believe that's the
10th.
Okay. Hey, Deb, the governor had asked the employees to freeze their wages, right? No increase. How'd that go?
I don't know if there's been an actual freezing of wages yet. There's a lot of discussions about different alternatives. There are discussions about furloughs. There are discussions about, having each state employee agree not to come in one day a week. None of this is set in stone, and I don't want to
Right.
set off a firestorm of consternation about this. But I don't know what the answer to that is, Butch, but I will find out. I haven't heard anything recently about it. Anything else? Thank you very much. I wish I could be here and, with a lot of really positive news, but I mean, I think that I want to do my best for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
I just would like to thank the board in Plymouth for inviting surrounding towns to the meeting. And you're certainly welcome to come Wednesday night. I believe Ray Burton will also be there.
But you haven't heard of any town securing stimulus
We
money?
haven't gotten anything, and I mean, we've got our issues to deal with. We can't drink the water at our town municipal building, and we need to deal with that. But my people have told me they've tried, and they've been told there's nothing. So we've got to dig a ditch and a line to another well, which is way off, away from the building. Luckily, we have a well available on the town highway.
And if anything, water projects have the best shot at securing the
And they
stimulus
try.
money, and towns are having trouble even getting those grants secured.
And I mean, I even emailed pictures of a bridge in our town, which I don't know how it's still there, but it's the bridge too short. And some of the issues with some of our roads. I'm not saying they don't get funded, but it's just anything that we have
Doesn't qualify.
doesn't qualify.
And yet we all worry that, as managers, it's being touted that so many millions of dollars of stimulus money has entered the state of New Hampshire, and we know at some point we're going to be asked to answer. You dropped the ball securing any of this money, because we didn't see any of it.
Most of it's going to bail out the state.
I think we just have to answer to the vote. I mean, they're wondering, why didn't you get this? What? And I mean, our people are trying, and they're not having any success from what you've said, too. We have the same situation here.
Well, the fire grant that we alluded to when the senator was here, it's $210 million. They're saying there's going to be 8,000 applicants. They're going to pick 80 applicants out of the 8,000. So that secures a 1% chance of getting grant money. Right. That's nationwide. 1% chance.
Well, anyone's welcome to come. It's an open meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Committee reports. Would you like to start?
Nothing to report.
You have nothing to, okay. John?
No, nothing to report.
I have a very brief, I went to the Main Street Plymouth Inc. board meeting, and the first thing they did was move the executive session from the end of the agenda to the beginning, and then dismissed all the ex officios, including me and Paula. So Paula ended up out. I haven't heard yet. But so I think that Main Street Plymouth is, I think they have to be a little more succinct in their reporting than they were tonight. They have serious financial problems, and I don't know if they can overcome them. Valerie?
I attended the NCC, North Country Council, quarterly meeting in Bethlehem. There were two presentations, one by DES concerning the New Hampshire Water Resources Primer, which is a book that really summarizes the challenges in the state with respect to sustainable management of water resources. It was a lot of information. We've got a copy of the book. I think Miriam's got the Water Resources Primer, and we also received copies of it on CD, so if anyone would like to look at it, it's a huge volume with lots of information. The other presentation was from the North Country Council Planning Director, who provided an update on assistance available for member communities interested in increasing protection of their water resources, which included zoning to strengthen wetlands protection, improving the management of stormwater during and after construction, and protecting the quality of existing or future water supplies. So a lot of important things that apparently there is DES money out there for, and I have provided that information to Paul to share with Miriam. I also attended a school board meeting. There was excellent presentation on a profile that was developed by a group of Plymouth Elementary School teachers of the demographic, perceptual, and achievement trends at Plymouth Elementary School, and there's a copy of their report that will be in our reading folder down in the office downstairs. And finally, Selectman Brown and I attended the second session of the Selectboard Institute at the LGC, which covered personnel and risk management, the selectman's role in planning and zoning, and a final segment on creating community vision, and it was having to do with building partnership and volunteerism, collaborative working with the townspeople, which is, I think, ties into some of the discussion that we had at our last regular meeting. Some really good innovative ideas on ways to, get the town involved and keep them interested as volunteers.
Nothing?
All right. Other business? We don't have any other business, do we? Public comment? Anyone? We're going to move to non-public. Do we have a non-public? We have no non-public.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Could I have one? I had a scheduling problem for Wednesday night. I was scheduled to speak at the college, and I'm not going to be able to make it. So, no, I've...
for your speaking.
Yeah, I was supposed to speak Wednesday night. Anybody want to pick that up for me?
I could, but I'm not. I'm going to have surgery tomorrow, and I'm not too sure I'm going to be.
Go to Thornton?
I did want to go to Thornton.
I did one Sunday. It was acceptable, I guess.
I can do it.
Okay, thank you. And when are you scheduled to do yours?
Sunday,
Sunday.
14th.
And
I could take that if you want.
I was going
You've
to...
done one already?
I haven't done, this is the first one I'll be doing.
If you want to...
You've done one, I've done one, then there's two more. So who's next, you or Butch? You're
I
on
was supposed to do Wednesday.
I'll do Wednesday, and you
I'll
can
do
go to
Sunday.
Thornton.
And I'll go to Thornton, and if you want to cover, I can cover Sunday for you if you want.
I can, we can talk about that.
That'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be good.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Brown, we'll entertain your motion. Second? Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded to adjourn at 7:07. That's a very old airplane.
Seconded?
Everyone in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.